I'm JP Tuesday.
And I'm Kiki Cannon. As lifelong Disney fans, the work of countless talented Disney creatives have shaped our lives.
Now, as the Disney catalog expands, we're taking a journey through film and television to discover if that spark that shaped us as children lives on in adulthood.
Does your favorite Disney media still cast that same spell? Join us as we find out. We are Rewatching the Magic.
Happy New Year, Kiki!
Happy New Year Tuesday!
2026 is here. We've time traveled, Kiki. We're in the future. And that's my lead into our topic for this week. We are still in the TARDIS, and we are talking about the Disney era of Doctor Who. Last week, we talked about the return of David Tennant in the 60th anniversary specials. This week, we're going to be handling the main series of Doctor Who, the two series that aired on Disney Plus, starring the 15th Doctor, Ncuti Gatwa.
Yeah, a lot of firsts here with the casting of Ncuti Gatwa, of course. Our first Doctor Who is a completely non-white doctor. There have been doctors before that have had in their background ancestry, that is non-white, but he is the first one that does not really have any Caucasian heritage to speak of.
He's the first main doctor of color, because we did have the fugitive doctor.
Yeah, we did have the fugitive doctor, but as far as the doctor who is the one we follow week to week, yeah. Yes. I mean, we don't want to discount the fugitive doctor at all. She was awesome, but as far as the main casting of the series, that was what I meant. Thank you for that correction. And also the first main doctor who was out gay man.
Yeah. Of course, Ncuti Gatwa, his claim to fame up to this point was on the TV show Sex Education.
He was actually very good in that. I haven't watched the entire series, but what I did watch of it, I really kind of enjoyed. I got distracted from it, never went back to it, and should do that. But I really liked it, and I liked him in it. His character was really interesting. Very different from his portrayal of the Doctor.
Yeah, and a lot of people, myself included, thought he would not even be in the 60th anniversary special because the same year of those specials, Ncuti Gatwa was in the Barbie movie.
Yeah, so and he was great in the Barbie movie as well.
Yeah, that was a big thing. Like, he was not going to be in the specials because, he was still filming Sex Education. He was filming his part for the Barbie movie. In fact, he was still filming Sex Education when filming on Doctor Who started. They actually had to film a lot of stuff around Ncuti Gatwa not being there. So, like, scenes with other characters, the Dr. Light episodes kind of had to be pushed up just so he could finish his commitments with Sex Education before fully committing to Doctor Who. So have fun figuring out which scenes were filmed with him and which ones weren't, because I don't know. And of course, with a new Doctor, we got a new companion, Millie Gibson as Ruby Sunday. I mean, this is her first big international role. Everything else had been like Coronation Street and other BBC shows. So, yeah.
Yeah. What's really interesting is, we've talked about it before. I am a massive Anglophile. Not even I watch Coronation Street. It is so weird that it has been on so long, and I know very little about Coronation Street.
Yeah.
Coronation Street may be older than Doctor Who, honestly, but...
I mean, it was running. I mean, it never stopped, unlike Doctor Who. We never had Coronation Street, the Wilderness Year.
Yeah.
But Millie Gibson does have a bit of a pedigree to herself, as that she is the youngest companion. As in, the youngest actress to be a companion in the show at, I think, only 19 years old when she filmed the show. Making her the youngest actress to play a companion.
And that was how old Ruby was supposed to be when she met the Doctor as well.
Yeah, so making her the first companion to be born after the revival started. Huh. God world.
Yeah. The cool thing is that she was literally on her last day of filming Coronation Street when she got the call that she got the part on Doctor Who. So that had to be a day full of emotion.
Yeah. So I think there was some comparisons made between Ruby and Rose, both having R's as their first name, both being young companions. The character of Rose was supposed to be 19 years old, even though Billie Piper was not 19 at the time. But yeah.
And they're both twee little blonde chicks, you know?
Fun story is that Russell T Davies actually requested that Millie cut her hair because at the length it was when she was hired, she looked a lot like Billie Piper. So to differentiate the two, they had her cut her hair.
Well, we've talked many times on this podcast about my face blindness.
Mm-hmm.
So honestly, if you put her in Rose Tyler's outfit, I don't really care how you cut her hair. I'd probably be like, look, Rose is back, until she opened her mouth to talk.
Mm-hmm.
Very bad with faces, very good with voices.
And yes, we met Ruby in the Christmas episode right after the anniversary, the church on Ruby Road. And it's interesting how Christmas and snow kind of become this big part of the entire season 1 arc because she was born on Christmas Day. And
actually, she was born on Christmas Eve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Christmas Eve. And it was snowing and Carol of the Bells was playing. And that becomes such an important part of the entire season. And well, I mean, the eventual reveal of all of that and who Ruby's biological mother was and all of that. It's mentioned it last week.
We'll get around to that because I do want to talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that is kind of really fascinating. The thing is that because she was born on Christmas Eve and because she made her first appearance in the Christmas special, she met the Doctor on her 19th birthday. So that's a big part of her storyline. Before we get into the first episode that we're kind of going to dig into, which is not the first episode she was in, but kind of the first episode of the regular run, I want to talk about how Russell T Davies wanted to reimagine Doctor Who for the Ncuti Gatwa Disney era because it was kind of a big departure.
Yeah, most Doctor Who series are science fiction.
Well, science fiction that kind of trends into horror sometimes. I mean, we've got the whole idea of, hiding behind the sofa and all that. But yeah, I mean, it was, go back and listen to our episode where we talked about the first Doctor and the creation of the show. But, if you don't want to do that, quick recap. Doctor Who was originally conceived as an educational program for children. One episode was going to be a science theme, and one episode was going to be a historical theme, and go back and forth like that. Well, then it ended up kind of being a more sci-fi, history, horror, whatever. But then, when we get to the 15th Doctor, Russell T Davies decides that he's got the great idea of, well, the Doctor can do anything, so why don't we turn it into a fairy tale fantasy show?
Yeah, and I mentioned this last week, that Wild Blue Yonder is the start of it, where the Doctor invokes a superstition at the end of the universe, which changes a bit of reality, bringing the pantheon of these gods from outside the universe into our universe, or the Doctor's universe, if you want to go in that direction. I believe
it's called, like, in space.
Yeah.
The letter N. I believe that's what the normal universe that the Doctor travels in is called within the Doctor Who canon.
And thus we get, goblins and magic snow and gods and stuff like that. I mean, the first episode of Ncuti's run is the Doctor versus he's the Goblin King. He's the Goblin King. He's not a legend. He's the actual thing. So because of all of this that we saw in the 60th, legends are coming to life. Fantasy is becoming reality.
We started having a lot of stuff that was previously not unknown to Doctor Who, but kind of rare for Doctor Who. Like, all of a sudden, we've got a lot of musical numbers in the Disney seasons. Like, a lot of them.
I mean, we're going to talk about one of them.
Yeah, I mean, well, actually, a couple of them. And you just mentioned another one, like the Goblin King episode has one.
Janice Goblin.
Yeah, Janice Goblin.
I'm waiting for the Big Finish box set about her adventures. Me and Gobby McGee, I want that to happen.
Yeah, that would be great, actually. As much as I disliked that whole plot line, yeah, I kind of would be down for me and Gobby McGee. However, the thing about it is that we get a lot of musical numbers all of a sudden, which I'm not necessarily against. I mean, you and I both love musicals, so we're not necessarily against a musical number showing up out of nowhere. But it is not really the norm for Doctor Who up until Ncuti's run. Not that I'm blaming him.
And a lot of people think, oh, is this the Disney influence? And is the Doctor a Disney princess? Sidebar, yes, but that's besides the point.
Yeah, Doctor is definitely a Disney princess now.
Well, for now, until, whenever the next thing happens.
Yeah. But the other thing that starts happening is there is so much fourth wall breaking. I mean, like, every character just turns to the camera and starts talking to the audience.
Not the first time. I mean,
not the first time. We've talked about it before.
Fourth Doctor and the 12th Doctor are very guilty of this. I'm nothing without an audience, says the 12th Doctor to us.
But this happens like almost every episode in the 15th Doctor run.
We get Mrs. Flood talking directly to us.
We get the toy maker starts it. We get Maestro. We're going to talk about that. The Doctor starts doing it.
Yeah, literally winking at the camera. There's an episode where Doctor Who literally exits the television and meets his fans.
Yeah. So, there's all kinds of things that I'm not saying had never happened on Doctor Who before, but now suddenly in this iteration, it is the norm. And maybe that's bad, maybe that's good.
I mean, it's not the first time that they've attempted to do Doctor Who as science fantasy, for lack of a better term. Stephen Moffat's run with the 11th Doctor, he specifically tried to make it more of a fairy tale. And whether he succeeded or failed, it's best is, take it, your own guess on how that run went.
Okay, but I can't believe I'm standing up for Stephen Moffat. I feel dirty. But here's the thing. The little bits of fairy tale that came into the 11th Doctor run, especially, with Amy and stuff, like all the girl who waited stuff and all that, it didn't really take away from the sci-fi aspect of the show. Like, it blended better. If you watched it and you're savvy and you have pretty good media literacy, you go like, they are pulling from tropes that are generally used in fairy tales or fantasy, and they are blending them with the usual sci-fi tropes that Doctor Who already is built on. And it's a little more subtle. What I think happens when we get to 15th Doctor is that they kind of tossed the playbook into the garbage and went, okay, we're just going to take a hard right turn here and go down a completely different path. You know? Mm-hmm. They kept some of the basics, you know, you still got the TARDIS, you still got time travel, you still got, you know, blah, blah, blah. But the entire tone and the tropes they're building off of just massively changed. And thus the tone of the show massively changed. Which, if you're a brand new viewer, it's not really going to bother you because you don't have context. Okay, this is your introduction. And that's fine. That's no problem. Everybody's got an entry point somewhere. We all have our first Doctor, okay? And I'm not going to yuck anybody's yum for their first Doctor. But the problem for longtime viewers is that you're kind of used to one thing, and then all of a sudden you tune in, and it's a completely different thing. You know, it's like you're expecting macaroni and cheese, and you get fettuccine Alfredo. Like, yes, it's still noodles with a cheese sauce, but it's like an entirely different dish, you know? It's not necessarily that it is bad on the face of it, maybe, and that there can be good points in it. You know, I like a macaroni and cheese. I like a fettuccine Alfredo, but if you're expecting one and you get the other, you're gonna have a dissonance in your brain, you know?
You mentioned, you know, this was going to be, you know, if this was your first time watching Doctor Who, and this series was presented as, advertised as, the fresh start of Doctor Who. Russell T. Davies would do interviews saying there's 60 years of knowledge in Doctor Who. You don't need to know any of that to get into the new show. And pretty much at the start of this new show, we're throwing in, I lived in a junkyard in 1963 with my granddaughter named Susan. There are other Time Lords. One is named the Ronnie somewhere. Oh, here's this old god I fought named Sutek.
Here's Unit, and we're talking about Kate's father, who the Doctor knew previously that we never see or get context for, but was apparently the most awesome guy in the world.
So it's like, if I'm Disney and I get one of the most popular sci-fi shows of all time, I am given a show. I am sold the show that this is going to be a fresh start, that this is essentially going to be 20 years later, that first Ninth Doctor season. And what I'm getting feels like the third season of the 11th Doctor or the third season of the 12th Doctor or something, where here's all references to other stuff. It's like, what you sold me and what you gave me are two different things. What was advertised and what was presented were two different things. Not that it was bad. Not that it was bad, but it wasn't what was advertised. And I think that is what set a lot of people off, because there's a reason Disney never re-upped the contract. The ratings weren't there because this show, from the jump, was not, quote, accessible to a new audience. Who was this show written for? Was this show written with a new audience in mind, or was this show written for people who may have been watching for most of those 60 years? Or was this show simply written for Russell T. Davies to get his jollies off?
You know, I'm going to say, I mean, we've talked before about we're both big Doctor Who fans, but I mean, I didn't even remember Sutek. You know,
yeah.
When they started that plot line in this, I had to go look it up because I was like, well, what the hell is this thing? Am I supposed to know what this is?
And the thing is, if you lived in the UK, you got context because they aired the Sutek episode with the Fourth Doctor right before the finale aired, so you would get context. We never got that in the States. The Tales from the TARDIS, where they take old episodes and re-edit them and put in new interstitials with some of the old cast members, We never got any of that in the States.
Actually, this is the first time I've heard that they did that.
Yeah.
You're telling me new information right now.
So yeah, they did it with, the Seventh Doctor. They did it with the Sixth Doctor and the Fifth Doctor. Pretty much every Doctor had one of these Tales from the TARDIS episodes featuring two of the original cast members reminiscing in character in the memory TARDIS. This is where the memory TARDIS comes from, of their past adventures. And for the Fourth Doctor, instead of getting Tom Baker back, they just had 15th and Ruby reminiscing about the first time he fought Sutek.
Wow.
Would have liked to have gotten that, but we didn't get that. Why? Because the classic episodes and the new episodes were under different deals. Sure, I could go back to BritBox and watch those episodes, but it's not the same because I'm not getting the new information with these new in-between parts with the 15th Doctor and Ruby. Unless you lived in the UK and saw it on the BBC, you didn't get any of that. So if you're an American watcher or international watcher in general, you did not get that context. So now you're already on a loose foot. Granted, they tell you enough in the episode. It would have been nice to get the full context, but is what it is. Let's get into the first episode we're going to be discussing of the 15th Doctor. After the Christmas episode, they go out and there's the episode Space Babies,
which was awful and creepy. Just skip it.
Unfortunately, it ties into the finale, so now it's necessary viewing.
No, it's not. Just skip it. Go read the TARDIS Wikia about it.
But on the same day, they released The Devil's Chord, which is the episode we're going to be talking about. We go back to 1963, where it all began, as Ruby wants to see the Beatles. The Beatles recording their first album at Abbey Road Studios. This is not the first time the Beatles have been involved with Doctor Who. Way back during the first Doctor's era, originally the Beatles were going to guest star as themselves. They were going to put on old man beards, and then they were going to be themselves in the future, where the team would encounter the Beatles still playing around in the future. That never happened, and they ended up using footage from another BBC show instead, while they're with the crew watching the Beatles on television. So technically the Beatles were in a Doctor Who episode back in the day.
It's in the chase.
Yeah.
They're watching Ticket to Ride in the chase. It's in season 2.
So yeah, it's 1963, the Doctor and Ruby at Abbey Road Studios.
I want to say the other thing that this brings back that I'm actually really happy they brought back in this series is that immediately Ruby goes, "Wait, our clothes." And the Doctor goes, "Oh yeah, we should change our clothes."
We don't see the TARDIS wardrobe, but it is a nice reference that there is an entire wardrobe of period appropriate clothing in the TARDIS. And as the Doctor says, he has a wide collection of wigs, and he comes out with a little mini afro wig on.
Yeah, and because Ruby says she wants a beehive, and she comes out wearing, a small beehive wig, and, but, I mean, that was a thing that was in the original series all the time, was that they would dress up in period appropriate clothes. Well, except for the Doctor, who would just kind of wear his own outfit. Frequently, the companions would change clothing depending on where they were.
And the times where they didn't, it would actually reference, like the time Rose is in modern clothing in Scotland, and they're saying, "What's wrong with this wee naked child?"
Yeah, and I always kind of liked that, and I realized they stopped doing that because the budget ran out. But, when they got kind of the the Disney money for this one. It was like, okay, let's put them in some costumes, you know?
The Doctor looks good in that pinstripe suit.
Yeah, no, I mean, the good thing about this season is that Ncuti gets some amazing costumes. The bad thing about it is that the 15th Doctor doesn't actually have a look.
Yeah, because there was that picture of him with the trench coat that they released prior to the show's release, and everyone thought, oh, this is going to be the new Doctor's look, and it's a good look. But the 15th Doctor doesn't really wear the same outfit 2 episodes in a row. It's always a different look. So this Doctor never gets a trademark look like all other Doctors have. Like the 13th Doctor, even though she'll change out the color of the shirt, it always has that rainbow on it. Or the 11th Doctor with the bow tie, or the 10th Doctor with the pinstripe suit, or the 7th Doctor with the question mark jumper and the umbrella, and 6 with the Technicolor coat, and blah, 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 so on and so forth. Each of those Doctors has a specific look to them, and the 15th Doctor kind of doesn't, because he's changes his outfit every episode. It's great costuming, but yeah, I do want my Doctor to have a signature look that can be replicated because we love our cosplayers.
Yeah, and I kind of do feel bad for the cosplayers who want to do like a very, like I want the 15th Doctor to have a signature look so that I can be the 15th Doctor,
Mm-hmm.
Especially for all the cosplayers of color who are like, oh man, I finally get representation in Doctor Who. Representation matters, damn it. Yes, there are a lot of costumes to choose from, but, you can put literally anything in that stripy scarf and everybody's like, oh, 4th Doctor. You don't even need the full outfit, Or, you can just put a fez on something and everybody's like, 11th Doctor, But, 15th Doctor doesn't really have a signature thing other than just having the weirdest sonic screwdriver design ever.
Yeah, it is a weird one. It looks more like a remote control, and there is a reason, and unfortunately it's not a good one if you want to go there, because having a black man carrying a cylindrical object in his hand that could be mistaken for something else.
Yeah.
So I mean, that is the reason. I'm not going to lie. So it's not a good reason, but it is a reason especially for children of color who want to play Doctor Who.
Yeah. And I get it. And I am kind of glad somebody thought of that, But I'm going to say, I do also kind of feel bad for the cosplayers that they don't have, real signature look. Like I said, especially the cosplayers of color, that they don't have, a real signature look for, the first kind of representative Doctor of color to lead the show. I mean, no offense to the costume designers, because bang up job to the costume designers throughout the entire Disney run, because the outfits that they put the Doctor and the companions and basically everybody else in, man, absolutely killed it. Costume design on point throughout this entire run. But, like you said, we love our cosplayers, and, none of the characters in this run, minus some of the villains, kind of really had a signature look. So, speaking of the villains, we wanted to do the Devil's Chord specifically because of the villain.
The Maestro, the child of the toy maker, played by Jinx Monsoon.
And honestly, I wanted to do this episode because I am a huge fan of Jinx Monsoon. I have loved her since her first appearance on Drag Race. She was my choice for her first season of Drag Race. Like, the second I saw her, I was like, that's my girl. I want her to win. She went on to win, when she came back for the All Winners season. I was like, okay, Jinx, we're going to win this season. And then she won that season.
And Jinx has had a pretty good run since then. A couple of albums under her belt, some TV specials, a couple of stage appearances, including one on Broadway.
Yeah, she was in Chicago.
Yeah, Chicago, Hairspray.
One of my good friends got to see her in Chicago, and I was like, oh, I hate you so much.
Yeah, she was Mama Morton in Chicago. Perfect casting, by the way. Like, in my own brain, just because of that wig she wears in this episode, it's like she could be like a really good Madame Marble in the stage production for Wicked. She has the pipes. That wig would work on a Broadway stage. I kind of want it to happen. It probably never will, but I kind of want it to.
I mean, never say never. I would have never thought that, like, she would have been on Doctor Who. You know?
I mean, I would have said she wouldn't be a Doctor Who because technically she's American, but, you know, they have had American actors on the show before.
Yeah, I mean...
Also, Jinx Monsoon does have a connection to a different British show. Her name is actually based off Adina Monsoon, the character from Absolutely Fabulous.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, if you're only familiar with her from her appearance on Doctor Who, one, go look up the rest of her stuff. She's absolutely amazing. She's got like a special on Amazon Prime you can look up, and there's stuff on YouTube, and go look up her seasons on Drag Race. Absolutely just incredible stuff. But she was just on the Tonys for Pirates, the Penzance musical. So you can look up that clip on YouTube as well. But her drag is very, very inspired by Disney villains. Like, it is very old school Disney villain coded.
I mean, we've talked about it before. Ursula was based on Divine.
Yeah.
So it comes full circle here.
Yeah, but I mean, if you just watch her drag performances, she really does pull out that old school Disney villain aesthetic. And then when she found out she was going to be on Doctor Who, she was like, okay, let's see. And she went and did some research, and a lot of her version of the Maestro is based on Misty. She went and watched Michelle Gomez's performance and took parts of that.
I could see it. And, maestro is another word for master.
Well, here's the thing, is when Maestro came out, and because of kind of the similarity in performances because of what Jinx did there, a bunch of people were like, wait, Maestro, Master, is this the Master coming back? And Rusty had to be like, no, that is just, it's Maestro in the sense of a conductor of an orchestra, the musical sense of maestro, the fact that it linguistically, it also means master. So they are completely different characters. At least as of this recording, it may get retconned in the future. Who the hell knows? But yeah.
So yeah, the maestro, the god of music.
Part of the pantheon of Discord.
Child of the toy maker. Yes, the maestro specifically, when we first meet the maestro says, I am them.
Yeah.
So it does not denominate a gender and refers to themselves as the child, the toy maker. Although her harbinger calls her daddy.
Well, actually, Maestro, the thing is that Jinx Monsoon uses she, her pronouns. Okay. But Maestro throughout the episode is consistently referred to with they, them pronouns. Everyone, including the Doctor and Ruby, refer to Maestro using they, them pronouns. And if I remember correctly, even Harbinger says they are my daddy.
Yes.
So Maestro, they, them pronouns, Jinx Monsoon, she, her.
So yeah, this starts the trend that goes into the rest of the series of each of these gods are brought in through a harbinger. The first kid we see in here, Henry Arbinger, and there's another Arbinger that brings in Sutek, and the harbinger for Lux is the theater itself. Does this mean the Doctor himself was the toy maker's harbinger?
I mean, it's a good question. I honestly wonder if John Logie Baird or the guy that was working for him might have been the accidental harbinger for the toy maker, because they're technically the ones that brought the toy maker, at least gave him the power in the giggle.
Yeah. I just say the Doctor because, again, superstition at the edge of the universe. Yeah. Anyway. So yeah, the maestro is here and the maestro wants all of the music. When they arrive in 1963, the Doctor and Ruby are in a world without music. So now we go to Abbey Road Studios to see the Beatles recording their first album. And, not having the rights to the Beatles songs actually works in this episode's favor.
Yeah, it was really funny because since they can't use any of the Beatles songs, they had to come up with really bad songs that the Beatles are writing in a world without music.
I have a dog. He's called Fred. When I first saw this episode and heard that, it's like, this song is familiar. This song reminds me of something. And I sent it to you, Kiki, off mic. This reminds me of the Monkees song, I'm Going to Buy Me a Dog. I don't know if it was an intentional reference or not, because the Monkees were like, America making their own version of the Beatles and all that. So I don't know if it was an intentional or not, but it is at least a nice little coincidence.
Yeah, but I like that when they're trying to figure out like why the Beatles suck in this version of reality, the Doctor and Ruby talk to Paul and John, and they discover that music started sucking about the time that we see the maestro first appear in 1925 with the Harbinger. And since then, music has gotten worse and worse and worse. Paul and John tell them that, like, this is the last gasp of music.
Yeah, they even say, they don't even want to do this. They want to just get this album done and go back and live regular lives with the money they're going to make from the album. But the Doctor and Ruby press on, like, no, this is not what they really want. They want to make music, but they don't know how to express that because music has been taken away. Like, the Doctor mentioned this. They're in a recording studio. They're in a record recording studio. No one's humming. No one's tapping their toes. No one is smiling specifically. Like, music is all around us. The ambient sounds, as the Doctor says, the wind through the trees is music. I like the Doctor saying that music is the highest form of thought. It's the arts. It's what happens to the world where there is no art. There's that part later in the episode where they go to the future and they see the future of this world without music, and London is a nuclear wasteland.
I like that the Doctor is basically philosophically on the side of John Cage here. For those of you who don't understand, there's a very famous piece by a experimental composer named John Cage called 4 minutes and 33 seconds, where it's basically a pianist sits down usually it's a pianist, it can be any instrument, but the instrumentalist sits down and then does not play their instrument for 4 minutes and 33 seconds because the music, quote unquote, is supposed to be the ambient sounds in the performance space. And so when the Doctor says that music is everywhere, it's the wind and the, chatter of whatever. And, it's very much like every time I hear that, I'm like, that's just the same philosophy that John Cage has. Like, every performance is different because the music is different, because it's not silence unless you're in a very specific, like, sensory deprivation tank or whatever. You're never going to have complete silence. There's always going to be ambient noise, and you can consider that music philosophically. And that's what the Doctor is saying, you know. One of my favorite things is that, you know, when the Doctor asked for the piano to be brought up to the roof, and he's like, okay, Ruby, I know you play piano and I know you compose music. Right now, you're the only person who remembers music. Play. And she starts playing a song she wrote for a friend who had a broken heart. And people start responding to it. And then that's what summons the maestro, who introduces themselves using the giggle. Yeah. Thanks, Woody Woodpecker. I'll never be able to, once I put that connection together, I'll never be able to unthink that. But, you know, the Doctor is like, nope, wait, run. And Ruby's like, no, you never run. And the Doctor's like, okay, look, the last time I heard that laugh, it literally ripped my soul in half.
I love how he phrased that. It tore me in two, literally.
I mean, he's not wrong. But this leads to my favorite reference in the episode. Because, you know, as the maestro is going around using the tuning fork and trying to, you know, hunt them down, the Doctor uses the sonic screwdriver to create a zone of absolute silence. Neat trick. Eventually, the maestro breaks it, and the first thing they say upon breaking it is sound and vision, which, great Bowie reference. Thank you. Thank you, Doctor Who. Much like the Beatles, we've discussed this before, but much like the Beatles, Doctor Who spent decades trying to get David Bowie to be on the show, and he really did want to be on the show, but it just never worked out.
He almost played the Master. I believe we talked about this.
Yeah, we did.
He was under consideration to play the Master for the Eighth Doctor movie. It just never happened.
Yeah, but I did like that they worked that in there. Speaking of, just real quick, speaking of costumes, the Maestro has such an amazing costume. That keyboard lapels and the, talk about a cosplay I'd love to do.
Yeah.
Man.
You could pull it off. Okay. I just remembered something. I hate to derail you, but you mentioned fourth wall breaks. This one has a fourth wall break right at the beginning of the episode, because when the maestro begins playing, looks at the camera and says, let's begin, and plays the Doctor Who theme, transitioning it into the intro. And then we come out of the intro with the jukebox in the TARDIS playing the Doctor Who theme.
I absolutely loved that. That's probably one of my favorite parts of this episode. As far as fourth wall break go in this era of Doctor Who, probably my favorite one.
So this implies that the Doctor Who theme is an actual song in the Doctor Who universe,
which I can get behind. I am going to say, like, we just kind of moving us along here, we'll agree with Ruby when Ruby kind of figures out that, like, the maestro is the spirit of music, but wants to take music out of the world. And Ruby says, okay, but if you're music and you don't want any music in the world, that doesn't make any sense. And Ruby, I agree.
Yeah, but it's also, music is mine. The maestro wants to be the only one to have music. So it's a very selfish god. And to the point where the maestro is using music to control the TARDIS. Fun fact, the song that the maestro is playing is the theme of Harold Saxton. So there's your other master connection.
Yeah. I do like that when the Doctor is trying to figure out what the binding chord is to send the maestro away, he almost gets everything right, and then he hits a wrong note right at the end. But the notes kind of float above a piano, and then we see Paul and John at the piano. And if you go back and you listen, you realize that Paul had told the Doctor exactly the notes earlier in the episode, where he's like, then there's, I forget the exact notes right now, but he's like, oh, then there's an E, and then there's a G, and then there's a C, and then maybe there's another G, and then maybe there's another, and if you go back and you listen to that, and then you look at what the Doctor plays and stuff at the end, it turns out it's the exact same thing.
So the Beatles wrote the chord. They gave the chord to the Doctor, and he was just missing that last note. And I like how he's trying to find the notes, and Ruby saying, wait, do you hear that? I hear music. Where's that music coming from? And then the Doctor says, wait, you can hear that? I thought that was non-diegetic. So it's like the Doctor can hear the background music in his own show.
Yeah.
This is telling me that, I mean, we've already talked about the fourth wall breaks, but this is kind of part of that. The Doctor realizes he is a fictional character in a fictional world.
Yeah, and then of course, once the Maestro is banished, the Doctor says something, like, I don't know if all these adventures have taught me something. It's that there's always a twist at the end, and you're expecting it to be something like really dark, and then they burst into a song where they're all doing the twist.
There's always a twist. There's always a twist at the end. Yeah. I mean, it's the return of music. Okay, there's a cut line of dialogue here, and I wish they hadn't cut it. It's a deleted scene where they actually explain this, and I wish it was in there for this one reason, because when they're about to go onto the roof to the piano on the roof, the Doctor mentions it. Once they defeat the Maestro and bring music back to the world, it's going to come in with a bang. Everyone's going to be musical at once. Hence why the big musical number at the end of the episode. Problem is, they cut that line. It's not part of the episode, but at least it explains what's going on. But still.
Yeah, and then as they're getting back in the TARDIS, they walk down the crosswalk at Abbey Road, the one that the Beatles made famous. And it works like the giant piano in Big,
Yeah.
And so they play a little tune on the Abbey Road crossing, and then they get in the TARDIS, and we end the episode.
Yeah, I mean, and yeah, there's also the parts about, the one who waits is coming, and the Maestro says every person has a song in their heart, and that's kind of what feeds the Maestro, and the Maestro wants the song in Ruby's heart, and it's Carol of the Bells, the song that played on the day she was born. And then it starts snowing, and then it's all part of that. What's this big mystery involving Ruby that ultimately was like, yeah, it's only special because we think it's special. Yeah. As I said last week, it's a lot of let's put some mystery stuff in the show so people on social media can come up with theories and then not really deliver on them.
Here's the thing. I want to talk about Ruby for just a minute, because I think I know what they were going for, and I don't think they hit the mark on it. But I do want to talk about it just for a second before we move on to the next companion. So, when we talked about The Last Jedi, mm-hmm. And The Last Jedi has that great reveal in there that was unfortunately undone, that Rey's parents were nobody. She's literally nobody special. And we talked about how both of us thought that was a great reveal, because we liked the idea of the democratization of the Force. That you don't have to be part of the special Skywalker, Palpatine, whatever group. That you can just be anybody and have access to the Force. If the Force is a thing that binds everybody together, then everybody should have some sort of access to it. And I think with Ruby, Rusty was trying maybe to do that, and kind of, fumbled at the 1 yard line, to borrow a sports term here, because they set up this whole thing as like, Ruby, there's got to be something big and mysterious about Ruby, and then you find out, like, no, she's just a normal person, You know, like her birth mom left her at a church because she was a teenage mom who couldn't take care of a baby, and she lived with an abusive stepfather, and she didn't want the abusive stepfather to abuse the little baby, and so she left her on a church doorstep, and the doctor ended up saving her from the goblins who were trying to steal babies, and okay, whatever. And the thing that was special about her was that she wasn't really special. She was just a human. And the thing about Doctor Who is that Doctor Who has always championed that every human is special just by default of being a human. Like, all humans are unique and special and wonderful in their own way. I know that Russell was trying to be like, oh, the thing about Ruby is that she's just as special as any other human, except that by setting up all this mystery stuff around her and then having that reveal, it kind of fumbled, because when they did it with, like, Donna, right? Donna really was just a normal human, but when somebody believed in her, she had the capacity to be so much more. She just needed a little more confidence and somebody to believe in her. And the thing is that most of the companions have been like that. They're literally just normal people. There was nothing special about Sarah Jane Smith, but she was tenacious, and and the fact that they built up this whole thing, we didn't need a big mystery around companions like Sarah Jane or, most of the other ones to think in the end that they were somehow special. So when you build up a big mystery and then you're like, oh, the solution to the mystery is that everyone is special just because they're them, it's like, well, yeah, we already knew that. You didn't have to,
And then they make it more complicated because, okay, now a god is very interested in this mystery. Sutek is very interested in this mystery because reasons. And because a god is interested in this, now it's become supernatural. Now she can make it snow. Now music plays out of her body, Carol of the Bells. Now we can't see the mother's face in the video because a god deemed it important enough to know. That's weird.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much about this that doesn't make sense. It's like, okay, so is she special just because she's a normal human? Or is she somehow, like, really important to the history of space and time?
Mm-hmm.
Pick one, because it can't be both.
And it seemed like they wanted it to be both.
I know what they wanted, but yeah, it doesn't work that way. Sorry.
At the end of the season, Ruby decides to stay because she wants to reconnect with her biological mother and learn all about, just learn about her mother. Instead, we haven't even touched upon her adopted mother or her
who is
grandmother.
Awesome, and her grandmother, who is right about everything. We'll get to that.
So it's like, I mean, I understand that, you want to know where you came from and all of that, but it feels like as soon as the biological mother enters the picture that the other two aren't as important, but I don't know. It's weird. Yeah. And, I mean, I'm not even going to go into you want to know about the Millie Gibson and all of those rumors, go look it up yourself. I don't got time to do that on this podcast, and I don't want to, but if you know, you know. So Ruby is written out at the end of season 1. We get a nice little Christmas episode, Joy to the World, and we get our season 2 episodes, and we get a brand new companion, Miss Belinda Chandra, played by Varada Sethu. She was in Jurassic World Dominion. She was in Andor. So, but most of the stuff prior to all of that were all British television shows and stuff. So yeah. We get our new companion, Miss Belinda Chandra, in The Robot Revolution. the first episode of the second season. And this one had its question, but it's questioned with the same people. How many times are we going to go to, oh, the Doctor is woke now, blah, blah, blah. You know what? If you're still on that, move along. Because you got no new arguments. Because it's the same ones all the time. And so we're introduced in the Robot Revolution to Belinda Chandra and her boyfriend, Alan. And they start this relationship. He buys her a star for her birthday. And that part itself is a great concept of an episode. Like, what if you did one of these buy a star certificates and it turned out to be real? Like, it turned out to be, not only do you actually own this planet, but you are now the ruler of this planet because you have this certificate saying that the planet is yours. That is a great idea for a Doctor Who episode, but this does so much more than that. Because we've had episodes of Doctor Who that deal with the bootstrap paradox. Google it. But this is the first essence of it in this new era. And I think they do a pretty good job of it, of trying to do that kind of an episode.
Yeah, I do like the idea that they took, these little scam things where you can name a star after somebody, and was like, okay, but what if that actually had consequences?
Yeah.
And yes, those things are scams. If you didn't know, now you know. Sorry to tell you.
But, it's a great concept. It's like, that is now, you actually do own this planet. You actually are the ruler of this planet and everything that goes with it. But Belinda Chandra is a nurse at a hospital. This is not the first time we've had another medical professional on the team. Of course, there was Martha Jones with the 10th Doctor. There was Rory with the 11th Doctor. So now we got Belinda with the 15th Doctor. A doctor and a nurse traveling together. Nice pairing. But yeah, the Doctor meets Belinda at her job at the hospital to try to save her from getting captured by these robots. He ultimately fails and follows her, but because of time travel shenanigans, he ends up landing on the planet 6 months before they even get Belinda, which leads the robots to get Alan, who then travel back to the planet, but they get caught in the time travel feedback loop and end up landing 10 years earlier, which starts the whole robot revolution to begin with, which sends the robots down to Earth to get Belinda. And yeah, bootstrap paradox.
A lot of this episode is kind of a basic Doctor Who episode, No, there's robots and there's an uprising and stuff, but you're really watching this episode for like the last, 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Because that's when you really get the real kind of punch of the episode. The whole thing is, the robots have kidnapped Belinda and they're going to make her marry this AI generator. And then they realize, it's not an AI, it's Al. It's her boyfriend who arrived 10 years ago and then merged with the machine and has been running this thing. And the real interesting part of the episode is when you see what happened when Al arrives on the planet. Robots bring him to the planet, which is already populated. It's got a humanoid species, Miss Belinda Chandrakind. And they're like, oh, hey, welcome. We're super peaceful. And immediately this douchebag is like, wait, you mean this entire planet is like a video game and I can make the rules and control everything? Awesome. I'm just going to start killing people.
When told he is going to be the ruler of this planet, it immediately goes to his head.
I mean, he literally orders a dude killed within 20 minutes of being on the planet.
And has no regrets over it. You questioned me, kill him, and I get to have all of this power. All I have to do is hook myself into this machine. Let's go, let's do it. If a person wants power, you shouldn't give them that power. They are the last person who should have power. So you now have given power to someone who wants power, who thrives on power. He is a very much a male chauvinist character, because we do get that flashback to when he's trying to propose to Belinda when they were dating. And he says, well, we have to get rid of all of that. You have to wear certain clothing if you're going to be married to me. This whole you're going to have a job thing is done. We're going to have all of these kids together and this, that, and the other. And he wants Belinda to become basically a servant and not much of a wife.
Yeah, no texting after 8 p.m. You have to lose this amount of weight. You have to, yeah.
And she's like, no, we're not doing that. And this was 17 years after they broke up. And he still hung up on her. They make that perfectly known. They were together 17 years ago. It is now back into the modern day of 2024. And he's still hung up on, to the point where he is sending robots to Earth to grab her so she can be his queen. So they can get married like he wanted to do with her 17 years ago.
And not just married, he literally says that he wants to subsume her brain, her consciousness, like, into him.
Yeah. He wants to take her will, the highest form of, taking someone's freedom away. And he wanted that, but in matrimony, now he's doing that forcefully with her as part of this AI program. So he was already a douchebag because he saw conquering a planet like a video game, and now he wants to force a woman that broke up with him 17 years ago to merge with him and be one being and rule this planet.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of the better episodes because, like, what's so funny is when I first watched this, I was watching it with somebody, and a few minutes before Belinda says it, I was like, oh, man, this is the planet of the incels. And she goes like, oh, great, planet of the incels. And I was like, oh, well.
Get it? I could have done without the clue by 4 like that, but I think a lot of people kind of needed it.
I do like, just to finish up this episode, I do like that, they create a time paradox because they have 2 versions of the little star certificate, and it ends up turning the dude back into a sperm, and he gets sucked up by the little Roomba that's been following him around the whole time.
Polish.
Yeah.
I want that. Give me a Roomba that has Nicholas Briggs saying polish.
Yeah. That would be cute.
I don't know how many people would buy it other than me and you, but I want it.
I mean, there's several other Whovians, I think, that would, but yeah, it's still a pretty niche market.
But one thing about, other than that, the main crux that I take away from the episode is that we have a companion that doesn't take the Doctor's crap. Like, we talked about this when we talked about Donna, is that Donna's been around, she's an older woman, and she's already had, young men try to sweet talk her, so she doesn't really put up with the Doctor's crap. Oi, spaceman.
Yeah.
And we kind of get the same thing here with Belinda. She's lived this. She was in a relationship with this man, with Alan, and who knows what else, because we don't really know much else about that afterwards. But to have the Doctor put on the new companion charm, even saying, I've met you before, I've met your descendant on another world, we get the flashback to Boom. And she says, oh yeah, that's cute. Wait a minute. Did you tell the other girl you met on this planet all of that? Did you tell others that they're special? Did you try to butter them up like you're buttering me up? No, Doctor, I don't want to be part of your adventures. I want to go home. Take me home. And that's one thing I like about Belinda, is that she is just not in it for the adventure. And granted, she's not given a choice because, as we learn through the course of the season, they keep bouncing off of 2024. So they end up going to different points in time to try to recalibrate the TARDIS to get to that point. And that's the story of the entire season. But I do like the idea that she's just not falling for the lines that the Doctor usually gives to companions. It's kind of forgotten because it really feels that these were scripts written with Ruby Sunday in mind. But I really wish that they had pushed the idea of another companion just not falling for the Doctor's charms. It is brought up a couple of times in the series. I want to go home. I need to go home. Then we find out why she wants to go home, but we'll get to that in a minute. Now, when it comes to the modern Doctors, we usually have to do one story that goes over 2 episodes or 2 episodes with a different companion. For this one, we are going to do a 3rd episode. I believe, Kiki, this is the first Dr. Light episode we're doing for Doctor Who in these retrospectives.
Yeah, maybe. I can't exactly remember, but probably. Yeah, I wanted to do this because it could be considered a tie-in to an episode that appeared in a previous Doctor story. So let's talk about it. We're going to talk about Lucky Day, which is the return of Ruby Sunday. So the Doctor and Belinda don't really show up much in this one, but it sets up the arc that will lead to 15th Doctor's regeneration by introducing kind of the lackey of our big bad for the end of the season, Conrad Clark. And since we just came off of an episode that was, about an incel, here's another episode that's about an incel. But this is more like Gamergate kind of nonsense, The reason I wanted to talk about this one specifically is because not long ago I ran across a video by a YouTuber named Harbo Holmes, I guess would be the way to pronounce that. It's like Holmes, but, WHO. And he put out a video called The Biggest Lie of Doctor Who, which was primarily about Love and Monsters, which is about how Elton from Love and Monsters is a very unreliable narrator and could be considered in a different light to be kind of a bad guy. And he talks about the fact that there were some deleted scenes from that episode that proves that Elton's mom is still alive, even though a bunch of the episode revolves around Elton remembering that he first met the Doctor when his mother got killed by some supernatural whatever, or, And so it brings into question, who is Elton making these, YouTube videos for? Or this, vlog that he's doing? Who is supposed to be watching it? Is he telling the entire truth? A lot of his story doesn't make sense. And that YouTuber brings up the idea that Lucky Day is possibly a spiritual successor to Love and Monsters, as if, what if Elton from Love and Monsters really was a bad guy? Like, not just like a doofy little dork who was kind of obsessed with the Doctor, but what if you took that to its more awful conclusion? And even though he doesn't say it, I think that this is Love and Monsters is what that guy would be before something like Gamergate, because that's when Love and Monsters came out, right? And Lucky Day is very much that same guy, but after Gamergate.
Very much the red pill podcaster.
Yeah.
Enter your favorite red pill podcaster of choice. I don't even know why our listener would have a favorite red pill podcaster, but I'm not going to name names. If you know, you know. And it's very much in that they're hiding secrets from us and they should be trusted and blah, blah, blah. But it's also a podcast obsessed with the Doctor, of sightings of the Doctor. He saw, like Elton, Conrad saw the Doctor when he was a kid. He saw the Doctor a second time, this time with Ruby. He ends up becoming kind of a background character in a previously unseen 15th Doctor Ruby Sunday episode where they're facing off against a monster that marks its prey with this goo that gets absorbed into the skin, and that monster will hunt whoever has the scent of that goo in their skin until they kill them. So Ruby actually gets that goo on her and the Doctor gives her an antidote, but Conrad also gets the goo on him, but he doesn't get the antidote, which originally we believe that is why he's trying to get in touch with the Doctor, because he believes this monster is coming after him. Again, that is what the first half of this episode is trying to say. And then it kind of shifts because it looks like Ruby and Conrad are kind of getting together. They're starting to like each other. There's something going on here, to the point where he wants to introduce Ruby to his friends. So they go out and they have this big old meeting with all of Conrad's friends.
And this is where Grandma needs to be listened to, because Grandma is like, yeah, don't be going out into a village with a dude and his friends. That's not going to come to any good. And the mom is like, oh, don't listen to her. She just recently watched Wicker Man again.
Not the bees, not the bees.
No, the real Wicker Man, thank you. And who ends up being right? Grandma.
I do like there's that scene of, the women in Ruby's life, her adopted mother, her biological mother, her adopted grandmother, and herself just chilling together and talking. It's a nice scene of, showing that the family has expanded and has brought in Ruby's biological mother as part of the gossip session, as it were. But yeah, they're out there in the country and things start going wrong. There's electrical issues. There's all this stuff going on. And Ruby decides to call Kate at Unit saying, hey, we captured that monster and you have it in containment, right? Yeah. It's been here. It's, it hasn't moved. It's, you're safe. Everyone's safe. But Ruby's not too sure. So, Kate's going to send, a team down there just in case, even though she can see with her eyes that this hunting monster with the goo is still in containment at Unit. But she's sending a team down there just to be on the safe side. And when all this goes on, all this happens, Unit shows up and Monster shows up, and it turns out, no, it's all been a setup. Conrad and his friends are actually truthers, trying to uncover the truth about Unit, that Unit's been stealing money from the British government, that there are no such thing as aliens. It's all been a setup. It's all been a lie. Ruby, you've been in on it. Is that even your real name? Unit's been deceiving us, and there are no such thing as aliens, no such thing as monsters. This Doctor is a trickster. He's a liar. Yeah. And they're broadcasting it all over the internet to show the truth that Unit is a scam.
And you feel so sorry for poor Ruby, because that, her mom had been talking about like, oh, I'm so happy that you're moving on with your life, and you're starting to date again, and you're like, you
haven't talked about the Doctor in weeks. Maybe you're finally over it. And only for this guy that comes off as this really nice, sweet guy and turns out to be, nah, he's a he's a grade A douchebag.
Yeah. The definition of a coitus guy. I gotta say, like, as a woman, probably like the best written sequence in this entire season is Conrad's little rant when his mask finally drops, when he's telling Ruby, oh my goodness, it's been so horrible being around you, and like, I have to listen to all your boring stories. Like, I've been covered in lip gloss, and I've been, and you're just the worst, and you're just, you think so much of yourself, and I am so far beyond you, and every woman has known that guy and has had some version of that speech thrown at her at some point.
Oh, Anna, if there was only someone who loved you.
Yeah, and it's not just like people that you're in a relationship with. Like, when you are a woman, like, just random strangers will do that to you. Like, you don't even have to know the dude's name and you'll get that speech. He's also very Alex Jones coded with his conspiracy theories. When he comes in to unit, they arrest him and they bring him into unit, and then he escapes and grabs, he shoots a guard and takes his gun, and
his own guy. The guy
yeah.
that let him in, the guy that, a fan of his, the guy that listens to his podcast, he shoots his own guy.
Yeah. But when he comes in and he's got like a camera strapped to him, live streaming and everything, and Kate says to him, like, wait, that's one of our issued weapons. Where is the guy that you took it from? And then Ibrahim says, like, I just got word, like, he's been shot, and they're getting him medical help right now. And she's like, you shot a guy. And he's like, I don't know, maybe you shot him, maybe he shot himself, maybe he doesn't even exist, maybe he's an actor. And I was like, oh man, that is so Alex Jones coded,
Okay, I don't usually talk about how makeup in these shows because it's Doctor Who, it's bug-eyed monsters and all that. But the makeup job they put on Kate Stewart here is very much sick of your BS makeup job. Like, she's pulling late nights at unit, and granted, there's a reason, because she's kind of been sweet on one of the soldiers at unit. But
yeah,
hey,
Ibrahim.
get your sums, Kate. Get your sum.
Yeah.
But the way they do, they definitely, they give her a bit of bag under her eye. They accentuate some of the frown lines in the makeup to kind of show that she's been working long hours at unit. And it really goes into that ending where the lighting kind of moves under her to kind of give her that I am done playing nice kind of look, where she literally says, the doctor isn't here, and I'm glad he's not, because he would never let me do what I'm going to do.
Yeah, they mentioned that Mel isn't there because she's in Australia dealing with something. And Shirley is there, and man, don't we love us some Shirley.
I love Shirley.
She's just the best.
Whenever the next series starts, I want her back.
I would watch an entire show just like with Shirley as the main character, like a Torchwood type spinoff with Shirley running like a team or something, So you're very right that Kate is mostly on her own. It's like her and Ibrahim, and that's kind of it, When Conrad goes mask off and gets into unit, he starts demanding that Kate admit, all of unit's faults and stuff. And Kate's like, all right, do you want to see what's going on here? Let's show you. She realizes that because he was so paranoid, he never took the antidote for the shriek that they've been talking about all episode. And she opens the the door and lets out the shriek because, everybody else in the room has had the antidote because they're not idiots.
And Kate's right. The doctor would never let her do that. But Kate is done playing games. You want the truth? There's the truth right there in front of you.
And not only does she do that, but she immediately tells Shirley, turn on all of our security cameras and broadcast them directly to his social media feed so the entire world can watch this dude get eaten by an alien.
I mentioned this off mic, and I'll mention this here now. Kate is very, very much more like her father than she wants to admit. Because the Brigadier would have done the same thing. The Brigadier has done similar things. The Brigadier has set off explosions destroying entire alien armies after the Doctor said no. So yeah, this is very much what a Lethbridge Stewart would do. So the fact that Kate is allowing the Shriek to be freed to hunt Conrad, and she's telling everyone to stand down, don't help him. How committed are you to this? How committed are you to the lies you've told the world? What do you truly believe? I love that whole speech from Kate. It's a nice badass speech from Kate, and it shows just how cold this woman can be. Neither one of us has seen The War Between the Land and the Sea yet, so I don't know if this carries into that series or not, but I do want more of this Kate. This is the Kate that really shows that she is the leader of UNIT.
Yeah.
But yeah, the episode ends. Conrad is face to face with the Shriek, and he finally admits, yes, I made it up, and blah, blah, blah. And it's broadcast to the world, and UNIT is once again in the world's good graces. Hashtag I stand with UNIT. The only thing I didn't like about the episode is that Conrad lived. I would have had Conrad die. Especially that scene where the Shriek just, that last minute jump scare where the Shriek just bites his arm.
Yeah, because the thing is that, the Shriek has him cornered and it's about to eat him, and he's like, I admit, I made it all up, and I'm like a pathetic little, nobody and whatever. But he's like, just save me. And so Ruby goes over there and shocks the Shriek.
Hashtag hot taser girl.
Yeah, hot taser girl. And he gets up and immediately he's like, well, at least your special effects have gotten better. Which isn't that the way, all those people are like exactly that way, And then, of course, that's when we get the jump scare and the Shriek takes half of his arm off. But the thing is that he can't die in this because he has to change reality. Because at the end of the episode, the Doctor shows up and brings him into the TARDIS, and he's like, people have to be special to get into the TARDIS, for me to invite them in. You can't, demand your way into the TARDIS, and you're a nobody, You're gonna die in prison. Nobody's gonna remember you and everything. And Conrad's kind of last words to the Doctor are basically, I reject your reality and substitute my own, which is what he ends up doing.
There is a bit of continuity here because he says, have you even met Belinda yet? Who's Belinda? Because when he met Belinda, he said, someone told me the name Belinda Chandra.
Yeah.
But this goes straight into the finale where Conrad gets the baby, the god of wishes, and wishes the world to be a conservative paradise where everyone is forced into heteronormative relationships. The disabled are bums on the street, and transgender people don't exist.
Yeah. But, once he's defeated, we get our regeneration story where we find out finally who Mrs. Flood is. It turns out it's the Ronnie.
You know what? Go back to when I talked about the Ronnie in these retrospectives. I apologize. I had no idea. If you had asked me a year before this, I did say, I don't think the Ronnie will ever show up in the show. I was wrong.
I kept saying I wanted the Ronnie back, and be careful what you ask for, because this wasn't it. You said you didn't think it would happen. I said that maybe you were right, but I was hoping and I wanted it to happen. And I don't know. Now I kind of wish it hadn't.
The entire brought back of the Ronnie is a joke that only works if you lived in the UK and you watched TV in the 70s, because there was a TV show in the 70s, I had to look this up, called The Two Ronnies, Ronnies. Two guys named Ron. And they had a TV show, so it's a reference, the two Ronnies to the two Ronnies. That's why I say I think Russell T Davies was just writing this show for himself, because this show was supposed to be this big jumping on point for Doctor Who. You don't need to know anything. And there's all of these references to past stuff and a reference to a show that only aired in the UK in the 70s.
But, they bring back Omega, which, you're not going to understand if you're not Doctor Who fan, And Omega shows up and immediately just eats the Ronnie. Okay.
What was the point of that?
Yeah. And then, in order to set reality correct, the Doctor has to regenerate because we've got to get Belinda's daughter back or whatever, and so he's got to use his regeneration energy to change reality or something. I don't know. Anyway, whatever. None of this makes any sense.
Jodie Whittaker had a nice cameo.
The one cool thing about that is that they did not tell Ncuti Gatwa that Jodie Whittaker was gonna come out at that point. So, when you see his reaction to Jodie Whittaker walking out in that scene, that is 100% his legit reaction. That's not even acting. That's just Ncuti Gatwa being like, oh my god, Jodie Whittaker just walked out in costume.
I mean, they had set up Carol Ann Ford's return as Susan the entire time, and this was supposed to be it. But they had to reshoot this thing because it now became a regeneration episode.
Yeah, the thing is that they went through the whole thing to bring back Susan, and now that's going to go nowhere.
And I understand why. I'm going to say this right now. The fact that they had to reshoot basically the last half of the reality war kind of sucks, because there's a lot of stuff that we ended up losing, including the return of Carol Ann Ford as Susan. But I understand why Ncuti Gatwa made the decision to leave, because, as we discussed, Disney only ordered 2 seasons of Doctor Who and 1 season of a spinoff. And when it was clear that Disney was not going to renew the contract, Ncuti Gatwa isn't going to take a year or whatever of his career in limbo, give up all of these opportunities just to wait for the next season of Doctor Who to start filming. Just in this year, he was in the Roses with Benedict Cumberbatch. So he's not going to give up all of these opportunities for film and television and whatnot just to sit around and while the BBC decides what they're going to do with Doctor Who. So I fully understand Ncuti Gatwa's decision to leave. It was the right decision. Do I wish we had more time with him? Absolutely. But that is the fault of this show. The show did not meet the expectations that they gave to Disney. And I hate the fact that Russell T Davies had 3 seasons planned when only 2 were guaranteed.
I still say that every showrunner needs to take their cue from J. Michael Straczynski. I don't care how many things you think you've been guaranteed. I don't care how many things you think you can get renewed for. You need to write every single season as if it would be the last, and then leave a few things open that you could continue if you get renewed. If you go back and watch Babylon 5, which you should, amazing series, still holds up, you can watch each season, and if you just stopped after season 1, you would feel like you had gotten a full show. If you stopped after season 2, you would feel like you had gotten a full show, etc. If that had been all you got, you would feel like you had gotten a complete story. And then, when it came back for the next season, when they got renewed, there were things he could pick up on and move the story along. But every single season finale could have been a series finale if it needed to be. You wouldn't have felt cheated. And I think every single showrunner needs to learn to do that. Don't leave cliffhangers, don't leave like major plot threads, dangling. Let your audience feel like they have gotten a full story. And then there are things you could explore in the future if you get brought back.
J. Michael Straczynski has thrown his hat in the ring as a potential Doctor Who showrunner. But he's not British, so I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it, but I really do think that Doctor Who needs to stay in the realm of, like, I think the star always needs to be some form of British actor. I think that the showrunners need to be British. I think that it needs to stay British in that, you can have, like, an American companion or an American guest star or, whatever. American writers even. But I think that the upper tier always needs to be British for this show. Okay, so let's wrap it up with the always a twist at the end, because this is the thing that really kind of probably pissed people off more than anything.
Yeah. Ncuti Gatwa, as he's regenerating, he fades into oblivion. Another being fades in wearing Ncuti Gatwa's doctor's clothes, and it's Billie Piper. Is this the Doctor? Is this the next Doctor? I don't know.
Well, nobody knows because Billie Piper is not credited with any specific role. That's the thing, is it just, when she's credited, it just says, like, and Billie Piper, but it doesn't say and Billie Piper as insert character name.
Yeah, we don't know if she's playing Rose Tyler. We don't know if she's playing the Moment. We don't know if she's playing the Doctor. We know nothing. And we're not going to know nothing until Christmas. We are recording this episode, pulling the curtain back. We are recording this episode New Year's Eve 2025. We have to wait a year to Christmas 2026 to find out. We don't know who the Doctor is. Other than it's going to be on the BBC, we don't know where this is going to air internationally. We don't know who's going to be in the episode. We don't know is it going to be Russell T Davies writing it? Probably.
The word is that Russell T Davies is writing that episode. He has already said that he is working on the episode and has the general plan. I mean, that's the current. Will it change in the next year? Who knows?
I don't know how to feel about that, because even in situations where Doctor Who's future is uncertain, we at least know who the Doctor is going to be. We don't even know that. I know a lot of people are saying, oh, Billie Piper's the Doctor, Billie Piper's the Doctor. Maybe, but we don't have any official confirmation that Billie Piper is the Doctor.
I desperately hope Billie Piper is not the Doctor. I'm getting really sick of faces reappearing. I mean, it's one thing to take, like, like Peter Capaldi was a guest actor and then got cast, And, I mean, that's happened a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
Colin Baker, But
yeah,
that's one thing, okay? The David Tennant thing was a gimmick.
That was an anniversary special. We can let that one go.
Yeah, but it was to get people watching again, in order to get people watching for Ncuti's run. How well that worked, debatable. But you can kind of see, like, where they were coming from. They wanted to get the audience back in the swing of things and then hope to retain them, because I think they knew that casting Ncuti was going to be a bit contentious. Unfortunately. It shouldn't have been, but it was.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing is, though, is that I don't know what they're thinking with the Billie Piper reveal. And we won't know for a long time. And I think the longer it festers, the worse it might be, no matter what the reveal is.
Yeah. Even if Billie Piper is the Doctor, and even if it's just for the Christmas special and she'll regenerate at the end, it's still walking backwards. It's not having faith in the show. And I think that's a big problem. Is that I don't know if the people in charge, and Russell T. Davies, Bad Wolf, the BBC, I don't know if they still have the trust in the show anymore without these kind of gimmicks. I put it out there last week. Will David Tennant show up in this Christmas special? There is a 0% chance that does happen. It shouldn't happen, but there's a chance that it will.
I mean, he could show up as Handy.
Possibly.
I mean, it's very possible that that's like actually Rose bleeding through into the normal dimension again.
Mm-hmm.
And we could see David Tennant like Handy.
The Meta Crisis?
Yeah.
Maybe. Again, we're not going to know until Christmas 2026. So we're just throwing out whatever we have in our heads. Maybe we're wrong. Maybe we're right. I don't know. We're not going to know. All we can do is wait it out and see what they're going to do. I don't know. And I don't like not knowing. Again, we don't really do they have the magic for Doctor Who episodes? Kiki, let me ask you, did the Disney era of Doctor Who meet your expectations?
No. The thing is that I think Ncuti made an excellent Doctor, but I think much like when we talked about Jodie Whittaker's run, I think that the actor was let down by the writing and the direction of the show.
I agree. And I said this last week. I think Jodie Whittaker's run was a missed opportunity. I think what they could have done with the return of David Tennant was a missed opportunity. And I think Ncuti Gatwa's run was a missed opportunity. And that really hurts me as a Doctor Who fan because there are so many options you could go with this show and it just never reached its potential. And it hasn't reached its potential in now almost 10 years. And that is very sad. And I hope whoever the next Doctor is, and I mean the next full-time Doctor, has better writing. Like I said before, I think that we do need a younger showrunner and younger writers if this show is going to survive. I don't know if we're going to get that, but I hope we do.
I think maybe it's time that we have a woman to be showrunner. Because honestly, we've talked about my love of Verity Lambert.
I was going to bring her up. Yeah, Verity Lambert, the first showrunner. Maybe it's time. Maybe we do need a woman to run Doctor Who again. Couldn't be worse.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's lots of people, lots of women out there who are talented writers and producers who are also Doctor Who fans, just like Stephen Moffat and just like Russell T. Davies and just like, go find one of them and give them a chance,
I don't even think it needs to be a fan. You just need someone that can produce a good TV show. You don't necessarily need to be a fan. And I think that's what a lot of people turn their nose up in these kind of fandoms. Like, you don't need to be a fan of Marvel to write a Marvel movie or direct a Marvel movie. You don't need to be a fan of Star Wars to write or direct a Star Wars movie. And yeah, you don't need to be a fan of Doctor Who to write or showrun or direct a Doctor Who show.
You are correct. I will say, what is considered easily the best Star Trek movie ever, Wrath of Khan, was written by somebody who had no idea what Star Trek was about. However, what he did have was respect for the property. He went and he did his homework. He went and he found what made it work, what the characters were like. He did his research, and then he wrote an amazing movie. He didn't have to be a fan. He just had to have respect. And that was maybe more important than being a fan, I think. sometimes being a fan can be a detriment. What I don't like is when an existing franchise gets somebody who's like, I want to make blank for people who don't like blank. You know? That never works. You know? I want to make Star Trek for people who don't like Star Trek. Like, well, there's no point to that. You're not going to bring in new people, and you're just going to drive away your existing audience. You know? What you need to find is somebody who goes like, I'm okay taking risks, but I also have respect for what came before. I'm willing to do my research. I'm willing to understand what came before, you know, but I'm not like so beholden to my own headcanon or whatever. Maybe that's what I mean.
Yeah, well, we'll find out in Christmas, so we have to wait for that. Yeah, that's the end of the Disney era of Doctor Who. Again, the only thing left is the War Between the Land and the Sea being aired outside of the UK. And we don't know when that's going to happen.
I'm going to miss the TARDIS.
Yeah, I'm going to miss the old girl too. But for right now, it's time to put old girl back in storage.
Take her back to the Foreman lot and let her sit.
Yeah. As for next week, this is going to be a double first watch. We're going to be watching a recent movie, the most recent Pixar movie, Elio. Yeah, this is going to be a double first watch for us. Kind of missed it in theaters. It's just one of those movies that kind of flew under the radar for both of us. So we're going to give this one a watch and see what this movie's about.
Yeah, can't wait.
So come back next week for Elio, and we will talk to you all next time. Bye. Don't let the magic stop here.
Keep the conversation going. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Rewatching the Magic.
We are also on Blue Sky, rewatchingthemagic.bsky.social. And new episodes are available at rewatchingthemagic.podbean.com and youtube.com/@rewatchingthemagic. Remember, the magic is for everyone.
It only stops if you let it.
We know that right now, things are tough.
But in the words of Jim Henson, the only way the magic works is by hard work. But hard work can be fun.
Check out our show notes for ways that you can help.